As you know, on Sunday night or Monday morning of every week, we post a new expository semiotics explaining why we would choose which lectionary readings. But in these readings, our dream is, and our desire is, to help you read the signs and fondle the details and spot the seminal metaphors, the condensed signs and the stories that are key for preaching to a digital culture. So strap on your seatbelt and join us as we prospect our passages for today. Happy second Sunday of Easter, a week that often goes by a couple of other names. This Sunday is called kind of colloquially Low Sunday, at least by clergy, because this is often the lowest attendance Sunday of the year, the Sunday after the biggest attendance Sunday of the year. It also, in recent times, has a name called Holy Hilarity Sunday, because in the light of the joy of the resurrection, this is a time of just revelry and lightness and fun and humor, and this divine joke that God played on the devil and that happened on the cross. So it goes by a lot of names. We're just going to call it Second Sunday after Easter, and welcome to the passages today. One is from Acts, a very famous passage from Acts 4, but maybe not for the reasons why it should be. It's a story about how the early church kind of brought things together and shared with one another. But listen carefully. Now the whole group of those who believed were of one heart and one soul. And no one claimed private ownership of any possessions, but everything they owned was held in common. With great power, the apostles gave their testimony to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and great grace was upon them all. I love that phrase, great grace. There was not a needy person among them. Whoa, think about that. There was not a needy person among them. For as many as owned lands or houses sold them and brought the proceeds of what was sold and laid it at the apostles' feet. And it was distributed to each one as any had need. Now, this has been a source of a lot of economic discussion. And I think it continues to need to be a source of economic discussion. But let me be very clear that this whole economy of the church was based. Did you get it? Let me repeat. Now the whole group of those who believed of one heart and one soul. What makes this possible is that those who participated were of what? One heart and one soul. That's the key. They were all followers of the risen Christ, and were of one heart and one soul about what that meant. That is the bellwether of everything else that follows. Now, our other passage is Psalm 133. How very good and pleasant it is when kindred live together in unity. Again, the sisters and brothers in a spirit of oneness, union, communion. It is like the like the precious oil on the head running down upon the beard, on the beard of Aaron, running down over the collar of his robes. It is like the dew of Hermon, which falls on the mountains of Zion. For there the Lord ordained his blessing, his forevermoreness. I love that little metaphor of the dew of Hermon, and comparing the dew to the oil. Then we have the main passage is from John 20 that I want to spend the most time with, but I do want to read a little bit from the epistle reading, 1 John 1. It does 1 to 2, and then 2 to 2. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just want to read the beginning because it's so spectacular. We declare to you what was from the beginning, what we have heard, what we have seen with our own eyes, what we have looked at and touched. With our own hands concerning the word of life. This life was revealed, and we have seen it, and testify to it, and declare to you the eternal life that was with the Father and was revealed to us. And he goes on, we declare to you, we declare to you, we declare to you. Not some hypothesis, not some theory, not some speculation. We declare to you what we have seen with our own eyes, what we've heard with our own ears, what we have touched with our own hands. This is true eyewitness. Now, the major passage I want to spend time on is two post-resurrection appearances of Jesus. We have 6 of them recorded. And the first problem the disciples have with Jesus is the same problem you and I have with Jesus today. In every case, in every one of these 6 cases where Jesus has a post-resurrection appearance, they failed to recognize him. And we are still today failing to recognize him. How do we recognize him? Now, some of you are probably recognizing me now. I'm wearing a mask. Not one of my favorite things to do, but we've all grown accustomed to the need to do this. Now, there are some people that I don't want to be critical here or judgmental, but it's some people that I just wonder about whether they've become too in love with their masks. I'm driving down the highway and see a car pass me where the windows are up and there's only one person in the car and they got a mask on. I'm going, the only word that comes to mind is, are you kidding me? Are you torturing yourself? Is this sadomasochism? I mean, what in the world is that we got another, on the island here, we got a couple that they're married together, elderly, but they take walks every day, and they faithfully, even now, mid-April, are walking 6 feet apart, outside, with their masks on. I mean, are they doing this in the house? But when I wear my mask, people either don't recognize me, which I'm fine with, or they misrecognize me. I mean, they think I'm somebody that I'm not. Just yesterday, I'm picking somebody up from the ferry. One of the ferry workers, they're about ready to get in my car. So I'm about approaching them, and they look at me and go, "Are you Steve Bannon?" I'm going, "Are you me? Do I really? Do I? I mean, how can?" No, I'm his brother, is what I said. Me? Are you kidding? Of all the people to accuse me of being, at any rate. So there's a lot of problem. We're having problem recognizing each other now, as the disciples had problems recognizing who's Jesus, where is Jesus, what is Jesus, and this is every single time. So the question is, how do they come to recognize Jesus? I mean, how do they come to say that's Jesus? They said, we declare, we've seen to you with our eyes, ears, we've touched them. Okay, so how do they come to recognize Jesus when they first miss him or misrecognize him? So here's the account from the passage today in John 20:19 to 31. And if I can stop fogging up these glasses, I'm going to read the whole thing. Here we go. When it was evening on that day, the first day of the week, meaning Resurrection Day, today, and the doors of the house where the disciples had met, were locked for fear of the Jews. Notice it says where the disciples had met. So they'd already been here before. That's why I think this is the upper room. They're back at the upper room, right? And what are they doing? They're sitting Shiva. This is the Jewish period Shiva, 7 days of mourning. And you lock yourself in a room, you sit for 7 days. You prepare no food. Food is brought into you, but you, people who are mourning and calling on you, you don't greet, you don't go to any door. They just burst in, bring you food, bring you greetings, and leave as you are sitting Shiva. Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." After he said this, see, they still don't know it's him. After he said this, he showed them his hands and his side. Then the disciples rejoiced when they saw the Lord. Okay. So it's not voice recognition first. It's not when he says, "Peace be with you," which is really what you'd greet people who are sitting at a table. In this case, it would have been a triclinian table, just snacking and eating. You didn't. This is not prepared. You didn't. Nobody sitting Shiva would prepare food. But here's the irony here. Jesus is making a Shiva call, which is what Jews do during mourning for somebody's deceased. He's making a Shiva call on mourners for him, on his own Shiva. He's making a Shiva call on his own Shiva. Okay? And he says peace, which suggests that they're at the table munching and snacking, and he just but they still don't recognize him until he shows them his hands and his side. Then the disciples rejoiced when they saw the Lord. Jesus said to them again, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, so I send you." When he had said this, he breathed on them. And he said to them, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive the sins, they are forgiven them. If you retain sins of any, they are retained." But Thomas, who was called the twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came that first time. So the other disciples told him, "We've seen the Lord." But Thomas said to them, "Unless I see the mark of the nails in his hands, and put my finger in the mark of the nails, and my hand in his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were again in the house. So maybe the Shiva went over 7 days. They just kept going. But Thomas was with them. Although the doors were shut, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." But then immediately he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it in my side. Do not doubt, but believe." Thomas answered him, "Oh, my Lord and my God." Jesus said to him, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe." All right. There's so many interesting and just scintillating parts of the story that we could spend the whole time on each one. Just let me give you a couple and stimulate your own sacred imagination. Let's call it that, sacred imagination. First of all, Thomas Didymus, or the twin, one of the 12. Okay, Toma, is Aramaic for twin. Didymus is Greek for twin. So what's this guy being called twin? Or twin squared? Nobody knows. I mean, people have speculated about it, but why does he get, twin, like junior? What's going on here? And it's a mystery. Now, people have got all sorts of, speculations. There's the, Acts of Thomas the Apostle, the book of Thomas. We got all sorts of extra canonical resources that say some things that maybe actually Thomas's first name was Judas, Thomas Didymus, and that was describing, and Jesus had a brother named Judas, so maybe it is a mystery as to and why Jesus doesn't have any of his family with him is when he's choosing his 12, when you pick somebody who's closest to you in your own blood, and Jesus doesn't do that. But there was there was a brother named Judas that Jesus had, so maybe this is the Judas Thomas, the twin, meaning one of Jesus' brothers. I don't know. Sounds a little speculative to me. I mean, I love to connect dots, but then I back off at speculation. I want some basis here somewhere. I want a secure dot to connect to. I don't want an imaginary one. So, but here is Thomas, twin, who is seen up until 1500 in almost, this is one of the most famous scenes among Christian artists, up until 1500. And all of them, except maybe one or two, Thomas is, and Jesus' word here encourages this, where he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here." And Thomas's words, "Unless I see the mark and the nails and put my finger." The words here are not, put is pleasant. It really mean probe. It really means kind of punch. It really means stick it in. I mean, it's an aggressive word here. It's not just, just touch, like you touch the hem of it. No. This is, I want real flesh and blood confirmation. So you have here, up until 1500, all the paintings show Thomas actually doing that, touching. And this is one of the big questions. Did Thomas touch or did he not need to touch? Up until I was working on this for you and thinking about it and praying about it and meditating on it and talking to some colleagues about it, I was that he actually did touch. Because it does say in 1 John, we touched. But if you look carefully here, and put yourself in Thomas's place, right? Jesus does not say, and this is for me the decisive thing. Jesus said, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen me." He doesn't say, "Have you believed in me because you have touched me?" Okay? He says, "Have you have seen me?" I think when Thomas understood that Jesus came back a second time for him. I mean, do you get how important this is? Jesus appeared to the disciples the first time. Thomas wasn't there. He wasn't sitting Shiva for Jesus. He was mad, whatever. We don't know. But he was not there. But Jesus came back for Thomas. Oh, we have a God who comes back for us, sisters and brothers. He came back for Thomas. He'll come back for you, even if you're doubting, even if you're saying, "I don't believe a word of this," until Jesus honors our doubt and wants us to doubt our doubt. And he came back. He came back for Thomas. He'll come back for you. So I think his coming back, and when Thomas, he doesn't say Thomas's name. I mean, Mary recognized him when he said Mary. But he says Thomas's name because the very thing that was holding Thomas back is what Jesus addressed Thomas. And just after he said, "Peace be unto you," and then he goes, "Thomas." He doesn't say Thomas, he says, "Here's my hands. Here's my side. Put," meaning probe, punch my wounds, and know who I am, your risen Lord. And I think that was enough for Thomas. I think anything more at that moment, Thomas would have, I couldn't go any further. So I think I was wrong. I think I've been wrong all these years. I really think this is enough. This is enough for Thomas. Now, one more thing here that is really important for us to understand. And it's not just that doubting Thomas becomes confessing Thomas. And this is really the first confession here. Thomas is the source of the first confession of the church. So we ought to not talk about doubting Thomas, but confessing Thomas. But Jesus breathes. Now, what is it? What's going on here? Why is this breathing? Okay, now, this is where you got to see the whole story. The first Adam is a whole human, male and female. God created them. So Adam is male, female, whole human. That's what Adam means, from the ground. But from the ground, whole. But God created Adam for relationship, and God, created everything for relation. All of the universe was created for God to be in relationship with, and then God created us to be, so God could be in creation with what God had created. But, oops, it is not good. Adam should be alone. I must make an Ezer, E-Z-E-R, an Ezer, Ebenezer, stone. It's more than partner. It's save. I gotta save. It's the place where salvation took place, where saving took place, and God's got to save Adam, this whole human, from his loneliness, because God exists in community, we're in relationship, and Adam has no relationship. So what God does is split Adam's side, and out of the side of the first Adam, a bride was conceived. The bride is conceived and born, in this first Adam's case, out of the side. When the last Adam is on the cross, and his side is split. And what rushes out is water and blood. Sisters and brothers, Jesus did not die of, technically, crucifixion. Crucifixion takes place over many days. It's a sign of torture. It kills you slowly, body parts upon body parts shutting down. Jesus was nailed at 9, died at 3. Now, what he experienced on the cross was the most excruciating torture because of the hematodosis and his just total open flesh with no skin, which made everything 100,000 times harder to bear. But what he died of, it's a broken heart, because what came out, oozed out, protruded out, perfusion of blood and water. In other words, his heart burst. But out of that broken heart, and he did say, you did not kill me, I laid down my life for you. Jesus laid down his life as his heart burst, broke, was torn open. But out of the side of the last Adam, you got it? A bride was conceived. But it couldn't be born yet, because the first Adam, remember, first is the dirt, Adam, dirt, ground, then comes the water. Okay. But then you just got this clay sculpture. And it doesn't become a living human, a living creature, until God does what? Blows the breath of God. It's not just any breath. See, animals got breath, but we got God's breath, divine breath. You can't be human without the divine. This is the point. You got to have the divine breath to be human. And that's what makes us so special. We're not meant to be divine. We're meant to be human, but you can't be human without the divine breath. And so after the bride, the church, is conceived, it has to be, and it is here in this first upper room experience, it is first quickened. This new conception of the bride of Christ, the church, is now quickened. Now it will be born. We call the birthday of the church Pentecost, not just in a little divine breath from Jesus in an upper room, but in a big gale, a big blow of the Spirit, as the Spirit is blown into the church, and the church, the bride, is born. But here it is quickened as Jesus breathes on them, and the church is beginning to be quickened. Now I want to say one more thing. And we've talked about Thomas. When Jesus gave Thomas what he needed, he didn't need it anymore. Jesus will honor your needs, but you won't need your needs anymore. The only need you'll need is a need for God. We don't want to be needy people, but God made us to be needy for Him. We need God. We don't like to be needy. We want God to take away all our neediness. No, but we need. That's one of the reasons. We don't want to need God. No. We're made to need God. We're made to need that divine breath. But there's one more thing here. When did the disciples recognize Him? And they recognized Him. The way in which He took off the mask. He didn't have a mask. He didn't have a Lone Ranger cape or anything. He showed them His wounds. And when they saw the wounds, that's when they recognized Him. This is the same story, the Emmaus Road story. I mean, one of the most incredible stories. Here you got Cleopas and Mary, his wife, and they're walking back to Emmaus. They got the stranger that they don't know who it is, and the stranger just kind of sidles up to him, and they still recognize him. He tells the whole story. His whole story. Can you imagine what it was like to be there when Jesus told his whole story? In his own words. They still don't recognize him. They sit down at a table. And amazingly, Jesus hosts the table. I could say more about that some other time. They still don't recognize him. They still don't recognize him. I mean, can you imagine this? He's still got the mask on for them. But notice, when do they recognize him? When he takes the bread and he blesses it. Okay. Now, you got huge long robes here with, so the only thing you see are just, very, very little, any skin at all. But he takes the bread and he lifts it up and blesses it, then he breaks it, and then he hands it to them. And when they take it from his hands, they see the wounds. And then it says, then they recognize him. Of course, when they recognize him, he suddenly disappears and vanishes. But you want to see Jesus. Look for the wounds. Look for wounded people. Look for people on the margins who are hurting. No, we think we want to see Jesus. Look at the saints. No, look at the sinners. Look at the people who need Jesus. I know they need Jesus. You want to see Jesus? You want to recognize Jesus? You want to find him and join him? Don't look for the victors. Look for the vulnerable. That's where you find our risen and rising Lord He came back for Thomas. He'll come back for you. And he'll call you. As the Father has sent me, so send I you. He'll call you to join him in his ministry and mission. But how do you know where to find him to join him? You look for the wounds. And at that moment, when you look for the wounds, he takes off his mask. And you know it's Jesus. Semiotics is the art of angling, of turning things askew, upside down, inside out, cattywampus, sunny side up, over easy, scrambled, hard-boiled. We hope you enjoyed today's journey, but always remember, it's more important you prepare the preacher than you prepare the sermon.